Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well, and welcome back to today's bonus upload. Before we jump into it, a couple links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It doesn't cost a cent. Click that like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. And yes, folks, they definitely do matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump into today's bonus, shall we? Today's first subscriber New York submission. All right, Jeff, here goes. Some background about me. You can call me AJ. I am a female who loves everything outdoorsy. I've spent weeks at a time camping out, and at one point, even several months, living in the woods. I hunt, I fish, and I love being outside in generally, especially at night. Or at least I did until the day I swore off night fishing for good. I don't care if anyone believes me. I have nothing to prove, just a warning to those who care to listen. Now, I live in New York, and not the city, but in Westchester County. This happened not far from my home in Buchanan in 2017, sometime during the transition from summer into fall. Now, the place I went was a hidden little lake. Most don't even realize it's there. It's always been a bit creepy to me, so I went with a friend, Robbie. I had gotten him hooked on fishing, no pun intended, and he was eager to get to it. We had been out there for a while on this lake before I decided to take a little overgrown path to another spot. Here's where it gets messed up. Now Rob is behind me, following close behind, and we are carrying on a conversation. I'm complaining about my luck on the water, and I think I'm getting bites, but I'm unsure. Rob is responding with random but he's being kind of rude in the placement and timing of his interjections. I thought that's weird. I tried to laugh it off. Turning around, I saw he was very close to me, like less than a foot from my face. At this point, it's dusk, and a little light is left, illuminating his hat, a baseball cap, but casting shadows onto his face to where I can't make out any features of his face. But it's him. I laughed at my dopey self suddenly feeling safer to have visual confirmation of familiarity. I felt safer till I felt his breath on my neck. Though it wasn't hot or warm, just sort of cool. And that's when it clicked. I heard footsteps behind me at the head of the trail. I turned around in panic. Now a different Robert, in different clothes, with lighter hairs, approaching me, calmly asking about my fishing luck. Now, I've spent my life as a sensitive and an empath. I have seen everything from ghosts, demons, shadow figures, angels. I have seen horrible violence, death, and real psychopathic things. Never, and I mean never, have I felt fear like I felt at that very moment. I yelled and went into immediate fight mode. I whipped my pole out in front of me and yelled every vulgarity, threat, and question I could in one blast. Who the blank are you? Where did you go? This isn't funny. How did you do that? Come any closer and I'll rip your blank and blank out. Now the tears are pouring out of my face. Made me pause a second. When I noticed them, I realized Rob looked very, very confused, terrified, and somewhat creeped out. And I realized I could only hear us, our breathing and our heartbeat. Everything else went silent. Somehow, Robert gets the bright idea to slowly approach with his hands out. Here, see? I touch him, felt his warmth, knew he was real, and then became absolutely terrified. One look and one word was all I needed. Move. All our fishing gear was where we left it, all around us, worth hundreds of dollars easily. We gotta go, leave it. I was trying to hurry his butt along. We broke through the entrance to the lake like psychopathic deer being chased by predators. We made it not 20 feet before I paused under the streetlight. It sounded like an owl. No, a man pretending to be an owl. A screaming fox? A man fox? A coyote? No, it sounded like a crazy person pretending to be a coyote. And it was coming from every direction, far away and right behind you the next moment. Rob heard this and was just as lost as I was. I looked into the space where they had placed the pipeline, and there was tall, red-looking plants, trees bordering the area, and I could have sworn I saw a huge, pointed-eared dog head leaning at a weird angle, like it were leaning against a tree, but not quite standing straight up. This head and upper shoulder and neck were so thick, it was huge. I literally froze for a second and tried to convince myself that I was not seeing things. We booked it back to the house after swiftly walking that one streetlight length so as not to get chased down just in case. It took a good several hours before I released my white-knuckle grip from my knife. My fingers were so stuck I could barely move them. I had to force myself to let go. That night and for weeks, I had to deal with something brushing up against the side of my house, right outside of my room and next to my head, scratching slowly at the wall, whispers I couldn't make out, distant calling of my name, laughter, you name it. I can't tell you how many nightmares I woke from, where I was drenched in sweat and screaming because of some nightmare related to being drugged and thrown into a lake or being eaten alive by a snapping turtle as I sank into the calm waters. I won't go near that place, and Robert will not either. Turns out I recently discovered Rob's cousin also felt strange there, and local people won't go there after the sun begins to set. And I don't blame them. I have no idea what it was or why it decided to mess with me that night. All I know is my carefree love of the outdoors that night is more of a cautious respect, and I won't ever again fish or even exit my home after the sun even begins to set. I'll literally panic because I know that we barely know anything about the world we inhabit. Never mind that we know a whole lot less about what goes on at the night. Just be cautious in Westchester County, New York, especially if you value your sanity. Today's second subscriber, New York State submission. Hey Jeff, the encounter I am going to tell you happened this August in upstate New York, August 2018, roughly 25 miles south of Albany. We went primitive camping in the New York State forest 5 miles from our house. Everything was good until about midnight, and then we started hearing the typical screams and yells sounding like a few miles from the spot we were at. Although somewhere in the 3,500-acre parcel, we decided to sleep in our Jeep instead of our tent. At around 3 in the morning, we decided to go down some motorized vehicle trails, which in itself are very rugged and very, very secluded. Eventually, we got to a sort of intersection with a fork, and I decided to shut the Jeep, as stupid as it sounds. I got out to smoke a cigarette. I did, however, have a powerful spotlight, so anytime I heard noises, I'd light the area up. After about 20 minutes of sitting there listening for anything, now mind you, there is no way a person, car, light, or anyone in the general would have known we were going to stop at some random spot on the trail to hide in advance and to prank us. Anyway, out of nowhere, all of a sudden, something big with a deeper octave than I could make yelled/screamed, almost howled at the end of the 5 to 8 second noise this thing made scared me half to death, where I could only think to start the Jeep, obviously, and hit on the horn several times while I got out of there. I don't know why or what, but I am certain it was not a coyote or an owl or a bobcat. This was deeper octaves than a 6-foot man could make. The yell was very deep, and it turned into a lighter scream sound at the end. This is my encounter. It's true 100%. I used to think it would be cool to see a Bigfoot or Dogman or whatnot, but I don't know now. I also don't go off-roading at night anymore. Thanks for sharing my story, Jeff. Today's third Dogman subscriber New York submission. This is probably the first subscriber submission I ever received. I had him on the channel on an interview probably 3 or 4 months after he and I talked, and when we talked he didn't want to interview, so he had me write everything down while we were on the phone and repeat it word for word to him, and this is what I wrote. This Dogman encounter takes place in the town of Russell, New York, St. Lawrence County. My subscriber, Robert, contacted me to tell me his story. Here it is. I was 14 years old in 2000 and was rollerblading all day with my buddy. Now, as night is approaching, we go to his house, and his father, not wanting any company for the night, sends me home. Well, I don't want to go home, so I rollerblade to another buddy's house. Well, long story short, his parents aren't in the mood for company either. So I leave and start rollerblading back home now. So I stop back at the first friend's and borrow his 10-speed bike, and with rollerblades on, start to pedal home on Cracker Box Road, the field area, and come to the Pines. I hear something running aside of me. I stop and I hear a snap, like a large branch got hit. As it stopped, this happened a couple more times before I finally got home. Now, throughout the years growing up, an old hermit lives off of Cracker Box Road in the woods in a kind of run-down hunting cabin, and always said that he's heard this eerie high-pitched screaming. Also, the coyotes used to the howl growing up. You don't hear them anymore at all. Something drove them out or killed them. Now, about 6 or 7 years ago, you guessed it, Cracker Box Road is a place called Silver Hill State Forest. It's a small pasture owned by the head of corrections, and he has 2 horses that run there. He came to me because I do a little side work, and he told me about his 2 horses were attacked. Their hindquarters were torn up by something with claws 3 times the size of human hands. The DEC came in and did some investigations, determined it was not a cougar and possibly a black bear. Really quick, black bears cannot outrun a horse, and claws are meant for digging, not ripping and shredding flesh. This is the final part of my story. There is a lake 8 miles away called Star Lake. Now, the gentleman who told me this story is the salt of the earth, God-fearing. He was fishing and kept hearing rocks getting tossed into the water. Then all of a sudden he hears a large splash, looks 30 feet down, and sees an 8-foot black, hairy humanoid creature. He gets in his car and drives home, leaving all of his fishing gear there. Oh yeah, a guy I also know has a picture of the Dogman's back. He has asked, "What's that?" and responded, "What do you think?" That's my stories, encounters, believe them or not, but I am a logger, and I always get leery when I'm into the woods. I actually forgot about that. I've remembered him being a logger, and I remember him going down the road as he told me, but I forgot about the picture of the guy in his town that he was talking about. I'm going to have to contact Robert and see if we can get that picture, because I'd like to see that. And I know you guys would too. Huh. All right. I was going through the folder, getting ready to narrate the rest, and I was flipping through because my encounter was the next. I wrote it down, but I'm not going to share it today because you guys know it. I have 3 left, I thought, but I completely forgot that Robert guy did contact me, and I'm going to contact him back. I do have his phone number and email. This is the last time we had talked, actually. About a year ago, I was contacted by a logger in upstate New York, about 50 miles from the Canadian border, and he told me his encounters. He reached out to me again. Upstate New York is a hot spot. Right now, we are having an odd winter. It is cold, but not as cold as normal, and no snow. Just rain and lots of it. This is what this man and his family are going through. December 14th, I hung new thick curtains over my windows and sliding glass door to help keep the heat inside. The same night my house was getting rocks thrown at it. We don't have neighbors like right on top of each other, so I know that it was not human doing. During this attack, my dogs are staring and growling at the windows. A couple of days later, my friend was out hunting and comes across a 6-point buck about 30 feet in the tree. That was not the only deer found like that. Also, a coyote population has dramatically decreased, and coyotes have been found tore up. I found a tree in my yard scratched up, and my riding lawnmower was flipped over. Anytime my wife and myself went outside, something would circle us in the woods surrounding our yard and rocks thrown at us. I saw a brownish-colored dogman, large, and stayed in the woods. There was also a light-colored one, almost white, with huge paws/hands, which I believe was the one that made the scratch in the tree, judging from the size of its paws/hands. The next day, I got a message from my friend. This is what it said: "Get a gun and keep it loaded." I was driving down the road and saw a deer on the side of the road. It was dying, so I stopped and get out, walk over. The deer looked like its back was broken, so I was going to put it out of its misery and take out my knife. Before I could blink, something reached out of the dark and pulled that deer into the woods. I jumped up and ran to my truck and floored it all the way home. 3 nights ago, my wife went outside to get some old oil to help the fire burn better that I was working on, and was hit in the back with a rock and came running in. I ran to the window and could make out the silhouette of a huge dogman in the moonlight and stared at this creature until my wife freaked out. The 21st, there was a rock thrown at my door and it was pouring rain out, and the rock was completely dry. These creatures are real and real dangerous. Please, everyone, be careful. Actually, the 2 pictures that I'm going to use for this upload are going to be the one with the deer in the tree and the claw mark outside of his home. Today's 4th, New York, subscriber submission. Hey Jeff, I'm a fellow New Yorker. In fact, I presently reside in Oneida, the place mentioned in a recent upload. I too have had cryptid encounters here locally. I'm sending along a drawing of a track I came across while deer hunting in 2017. I used to have a picture of it on my phone, but my phone got wiped clean of all my personal files while trying to upload music a year ago. Sorry for the quality, but it's the best I could do. Anyway, the same hunting season as this one, but in a different location, opening day on rifle. I was preparing my gear to head into the woods at about 4:45 in the morning. This was on Crumhorn Mountain, approximately 6 or 7 miles east of the city. As I neared the rear of my truck, I heard an enormous whoop sound coming from northwest. I estimated it to be within 300 yards of my position. 6 or 7 seconds later comes the second one, same distance, but off to the northeast this time. The sounds were as loud as an Oklahoma tornado siren. I went into the woods anyway, but that day turned out to be a bust. I have had very distinct feelings of being watched in the area, but never saw anything. Another area I hunt is south of the city, a few miles up in Franklin Mountain, which is where I came across the track. This was in days of what I now believe to be a Bigfoot communication on opening day. There had been a light dusting of snow the previous night, and it left an inch or so of light, fluffy snow on the ground. I was traversing a 2-track up the hill toward the back of this 300-acre property. I had come upon some fresh deer tracks headed the same direction. I was following those tracks when the track from the drawing appeared right next to the deer tracks. I couldn't determine where it originated from, but I saw where they were headed. They were bipedally and had a span of approximately 5 feet between tracks. The hair on my neck stood up immediately. I quickly took my glove off and laid it next to the track for size comparison and hightailed it out of there. My glove was 5.5 inches wide by 9.5 inches long. The track was roughly 1.5 inches to 2 inches longer than my glove. I did share the actual picture with Kerry from Bigfoot Odyssey, but haven't contacted him to see if he still has it. My last encounter was around the same time I was driving on Crumhorn Mountain. I was on I-88 just leaving the city between exit 15 and 16. The railroad tracks pass under the highway at a roughly 15-degree angle, and the highway speed for 2 or 3 seconds. You can look down the tracks for a few hundred yards. While passing this area late afternoon, still light out, I happened to look down the tracks and saw a large, dark figure walking east on the tracks. Just so happened that at the same time, it turned at the waist and looked back toward me as I passed by. Now, I've looked numerous times since then as I pass by, quite often, and the figure I saw was approximately 200 yards down the tracks. But the size of the figure had to be enormous because it looked the same size a normal human would look if only 50 yards away. Today's final New York subscriber submission. Hey Jeff, I enjoy your reading much more than the over melodramatic Aussie accents on other sites. Here is my story for what it's worth. I too am originally from upstate New York, and until I got married and moved to Montana, I camped and hunted in the woodlands of Greenwood Lake on the New Jersey border to Blue Mountain Lake in the Adirondacks. One hunting season many years back, I loaded up my pickup and headed for the 300-odd mile drive up to Blue Mountain Lake area for the weekend of hunting and camping. It had snowed the day before, and when I got to the area called Canoe Portage, the light covered of snow, anywhere from 2 inches to ankle deep, was frozen and crunchy underfoot. Not good for sneaking up on game. But I intended to hike up to a small clearing at the end of the trail and sit until daylight and maybe get a nice fat deer. I get to the camp area at about midnight and made a hasty camp in the back of my truck, ate a quick snack for supper, and then crawled into my sleeping bag until about 4 in the morning. When I rolled out, there was a watery moon showing through the thin clouds. It was cold, but not bad. In fact, it looked like it'd be a fine day. I ate a quick breakfast of oatmeal and coffee and put a PB&J sandwich, some candies and cookies in my pockets, grabbed my rifle and knife and set out on the trail. I was really poorly prepared for anything, as I only figured to make a short day of it and then back to the truck to set up a better camp. I didn't carry a flashlight or any survival equipment, not even anything to make a fire in case the weather turned nasty. It's just plain stupid to do something like that in the wilds of upstate New York, or much more so here in the wilderness of western Montana. I was young and overconfident. Now, on to my adventure. As I crunched along the trail, making no attempt to be quiet, the weak moonlight illuminated the trail, but the woods on either side were deep and dark. After about a mile, I began to be aware of what sounded like footsteps echoing off my own. I brushed it off as an imagination, but it sounded more real by the minute. Finally, I decided to try an old Indian trick. I walked on confidently, and then I stopped suddenly in mid-step. Sure enough, whatever it was, went another step or two before being stopped. That made my hair stand up to bristle. I went on for another couple of 100 yards or so, and then I tried the trick again. I guess it wasn't too smart because it made a couple more steps. Now I'm getting the chills. A few yards ahead, the trail made a turn to the right, then crossed a small stream that was running down from the hill on my right. It sounded like the footsteps had moved ahead and crossed the trail ahead of me. When I got there were large footprints of a heavy creature pressed deeply into the soft soil and snow. Having grown up in a rural environment, I was good at reading tracks, but these were not like anything I had ever seen. They were oval and cloven-hooved. What's more, they were made by something walking on two legs. The stride between the prints were 4 to 5 feet. Now, in legends of people who live in those mountains, haints, or haunts, or spooks, can't cross naturally flowing water, so of course it had to cross the trail before it came to the water. Years later, I came across stories, mainly from England, that told of devils roaming the countryside on snowy nights, leaving trails with cloven-hooved tracks, that went for miles, even up and down over rooftops. Obviously, my visitor was not a Dogman or a Sasquatch, but something else, out of the vast unknown cryptid array. I'm glad it chose not to show itself. So, as I'm reading that, I am completely thinking about something. And after I stopped or finished, I checked and I simply said, "Hey Google, how far is Blue Mountain Lake to Brant Lake or Horicon?" And it's 57 minutes north. So where this guy was is 57 minutes north of where Tom Messick was. And some sort of cryptid with cloven hooves, or we'll just call it hooves, was stalking this guy, this hunter out there. I'm wondering if that's what got Tom Messick, not a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch, but something far more creepier, sinister. The only reason why I say is because it's unknown. I mean, Goat Man, who knows? All I know is it's weird. Literally, wow. Holy cow. It's crazy. You know, like, I know you guys get that too when you're hearing something and your brain puts something together and you're like, whoa, could that be it? Because this thing was like walking for miles and then hitting rooftops and this and that and this and that. I mean, if some sort of creature like that was out there, I mean, what kind of protection would an elderly, partially blind deaf man have? And when I went up to Horicon this year on his day of the disappearance, I was creeped out, especially on that trail road into the woods. Anyway, I'm just mumbling now. I hope you guys enjoyed tonight's upload as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I want to thank everybody for all of your support and kindness. With that, please be kind to each other, and may the Great Spirit watch over us all, and may He guide us down that path that we call life. And oh yeah, until tomorrow, not tomorrow. Until later on tonight, my friends. Psych! My studio was 92 degrees because I had the door shut for 3 hours and I was getting tired. I opened the door, cracked the window, and now I'm back. And guess what? I'm going to briefly share my encounter. Those of you who have heard it can stop the video. Those of you who have not can continue. Or if you've heard it and you want to listen to it again, go ahead. I hope you enjoy it. But, so, 1994, myself, my friend Martin, my friend Gabe, who is driving a light blue Caprice Classic, 2 girls, Rachel and Lindsay. We are traveling south on Route 9 out of our town of Moreau. We live in between Lake George and Saratoga, New York, the foothills of the Adirondacks. As we were going down Route 9, there's these new cul-de-sacs with these new homes being built, and Lindsay lives in a cul-de-sac above the cul-de-sac that we pull in on. Now we're going down Route 9 south. We pull into the right, and we go all the way into the cul-de-sac. Gabe's driving. We pull to almost, more than 3/4 of the way to the end. And Gabe backs up, and we park. Behind us is a little island of woods and Route 9, the road we just came from. In front of us is 4 to 5 skeletal homes in orange street light. It's really a garbage light. And I'll never forget this day. The details are just so friggin' vivid in my head. In front of us are these homes that are skeletons. Like, they're not built yet. They're just frames. And this funky orange glowing streetlight. And woods. Beyond the woods is a mountain, the Hudson River. On that mountain, though, is an old prison that is no longer working. Then the Hudson River. Then more woods. Just a vast amount of woods in front of us from where we're standing. We're out of the car. Gabe's got the car turned off. He's in the car controlling the music. We're listening to Biohazard's new album. And for those of you who do not know who Biohazard is, it was a New York City hardcore band. We're all sober. We're not drinking. We're not smoking weed. We're not doing anything. We're probably smoking ciggies. And probably 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes of us being there. It's, we got the music cranked. We can't hear crap. We hear this god-awful shriek. And I say shriek, but don't think shriek of like a high-pitched person. Think of like a demon coming from hell that has just erupted out of the ground. That's what it sounded like. We could see these eye shines coming from the left of us through the woods. The girls see it. They're like vampire. Me and Martin's on the left-hand side of the car. I'm on the right hand. These eyes get in front of us, and it kind of does this lower shriek. And wow. So they're lower, 4 to 5 to 7 feet in height, coming off the left-hand side. We hear the shriek. Gabe turns the music down. The girls are scared. They get in the car. Martin crosses in front of me, and now he's on my right-hand side. I have my hand on the hood emblem at this point, playing with it. For those of you who have heard this, and those of you who heard me talk about Martin, he was my greatest friend growing up. He looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger, smaller, sounded just like him. Jiff, I want your bike, your boots, and your motorcycle. So, I swear to God. And he was dumb as a box of rocks. The first day I met him, he jumped out in front of me on the pole lines when I was flying down the trails on a Kawasaki Mojave, which is a 250 four-wheeler, 4-stroke. Just plowed right into him. Bloop. But we've been friends since that day. Jeff, what is it? We gotta get in the car. And fight or flight mode has not kicked in. Curiosity that killed the cat is right there. As we're hearing these like more shrieks that sound like demons are upon us. I look to the left and I see these couple of creatures going to the left of us toward the light in one of the houses. Martin is opened the passenger side door of the car now. Get in the car, get in the car. And I do. Gabe pulls out of our spot and we stop at the stoplight, or stop sign, excuse me. There's no traffic coming. It's well after midnight, but better safe than sorry. There was a stone quarry in front of that road where we're coming out of. Usually police park there, just to keep an eye on everything. So we pull out, and I look to my left. We're going left. And this creature comes out of the woods. And it's like nothing I had ever seen in my entire life. So as it steps out, what I can make of it is it looks like a basketball player, a muscular basketball player. Not like LeBron James, but less muscular, same height, I guess. The legs are hocked. I don't recall a tail. The snout was 3 to 5 inches, if that. Its brown coat was very strange. It was illuminated by that orange street light down the road. And I don't know, it did not look like it belonged on this planet. It looked like that screech or whatever the heck it was belonged to it for 100%. It looked like it followed that scream from hell right out. It looked like some sort of canine demon, to be honest with you. We ended up having to drop the girls off, and we had to go by that spot later on that night. And we didn't see anything, but we were scared. Martin and I go back the next day. We're looking at the ground. One of the workers yells over at us and starts walking rapidly towards us. Apparently during this time, people are stealing wood and crap. There was a lot of houses being built in our area at that time. We just said we were looking for our dog, because we were looking in like the sand off the side of the road. That's another thing. The soil is very sandy. A lot of pine trees right there. The guy says that's weird because the night that we were there, when they were packing up for the night to go home, it sounded like a huge dogfight out in the woods. We left. Later, I went to a bookstore, a used bookstore. I found an old cryptid book, Bigfoot book, whatever. Of course, Jersey Devil and crap like that was in it. Not crap, but stuff like that. Strange enough, that bookstore, that tiny bookstore, was a magic store as well. The guy was a magician. Across the street was a 6-story, tall Masonic lodge. Had been closed for a while. Just weird. Little connections. All right, folks, I hope that you all enjoyed this bonus as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. It is your support, after all, that helps the channel to continue to grow and go. And honestly, what makes it a place for people to share their ideas, theories, and experiences, judgment and ridicule-free, just simply treated with the respect that we all deserve. Thank you. Everyone stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and friends. These creatures are real, they are out there, and they are dangerous. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for answers, and God bless.